Today's webinar is all about the Windows 10 Start menu. I know there are probably a few of you that have already installed Windows 10. Some other people we've asked, look, don't install Windows 10 until you get to see some of our webinars. Today's is on the Start menu. Thursday will be on Microsoft Edge, which is the new browser. And we're going to have a couple more Windows 10 webinars in the month of September, and I hope you'll sign up for those too also. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to look, and you're going to see a couple different things happening here on the screen. One of those things is you'll see that on the right-hand side, you're going to see that I have something I'm going to be pulling up kind of like an outline. And just so you know, that's fine. That outline is going to be given to you in the follow-up, so you don't really have to take notes. It'll all be there for you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the Windows 10 Start menu, how it's the same and how it's different than from some other menus that we've had in Windows. So the first thing I want to look at is something that's different, and that is that you can actually resize the Start menu. Now, where is the Start menu? If you have your taskbar at the bottom, which is the default with Windows 10, it's in the same place that you used to Start menu in the lower left-hand corner. It's a little icon with it's supposed to look like a window with 4 panes. So when I click on that, here is my Start menu. Now here's what I mean by you can resize it. I can take my mouse to the top, very top, and when I see the mouse change into 2 arrows, I can hold down my left mouse button and I can drag it up. So I can make it taller. If I wanted to make it wider, I can go to the right and I see the 2 arrows. And one of the things that happens on some units that are not touch, you might find that if you try to move it, it doesn't move. So a little hint, if you get the 2 arrows, you can then hold down the left button and use the left and right arrow keys on your keyboard, and it will make the Start menu expand even bigger. All right, so that's a very big Start menu that we're looking up right now. It's taking up a lot of real estate on the window. You might not want to do that, but that's how you can change the size. Now that's something new. You could never really change the size in any previous versions of Windows. Kind of a cool little feature. I like it because I can make it fit what I want it to do. All right, now the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look that the Start menu is divided in 2. So let me bring the Start menu back up again. And if you look, the left side of the Start menu is what you're kind of used to with similar versions or previous versions of Windows, Windows XP, Vista, and Windows 7. On the left side, you were used to having some similar things that we have here, and it works, as you'll see, it works like it used to. The second half of the Start menu on the right-hand side is the Windows 8 and 8.1 menu. And we're going to see how to use both sides today. Whether you use a mouse and keyboard, whether you use touch. This particular laptop that I'm on right now and demonstrating to you today, that is not touch at all. So everything I'm doing with the mouse and keyboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to look first at the left side. So let's take a look at some areas of the left side. I'm going to bring it up again. On the left side, near the bottom, there's something called Power. And if I click on that, you'll see that I get 3 options. I can put the computer to sleep, I can shut it down, or I can restart it. So that's where you find those options now. It's on the left side of the Start menu, second one up from the bottom, and it's the Power. Notice that Log Off is not there. We do have Log Off, and I'll show you that in a little bit, but Log Off is not right there. All right, so that's where the power settings are to put it to sleep, to shut it down, or to restart. Now the next area on the left that we're going to take a look at is at the top. And at the top, you have uh, your account is there. Like for instance, if you look up there at mine, it says John Grubb. If I click on that, now I get a drop down menu that gives me the opportunity to change my account settings. It gives me the opportunity to lock the screen. So if I am using a password and I want to walk away from the computer and lock it so that no one else can get on, I can simply click lock and everything will stay open that I have open, but it will go back to where I had to put my password in. Now, if you're using Windows 10 with more than one user, maybe we have a husband and wife team on the same computer, and one of you has a login and the other one has a different login, I could now go to sign out. And when I go to sign out, it will go back to give me the opportunity to choose a different account to sign in with. So that's where what we used to call log off is now called sign out, and that's at the very top. All right, also on the left-hand side, the next thing we're going to look at is what is the most used, and I'll show you that. And I'll talk to you about something that was actually introduced in Windows 7, but I have discovered more and more that people don't know about them. Okay, up here at the top, most used. This is showing in this particular case the 6 applications that I use the most. And of course, that can change as you use Windows 10. You might use one more than another. Now, if you look, you'll see that most of the apps have a little arrow to the right-hand side. This is one of the best features that started really in Windows 7. This gives you an opportunity to go to what we call jump lists. And in fact, if you put your mouse on one of those and wait, you'll get a little box that says show jump list. And here's what that means. For instance, I was in Firefox enough that it's up there in my top 6. If I click on the jump list, it will show me the web pages that I was on most recently. So if I wanted to go to send out cards as an example, where we use that to send greeting cards to people in the mail and make them personalized and all that. Well, instead of having to open Firefox and then type in send out cards or go to my favorites or whatever, I can simply use the jump list and click on send out cards main menu in this case. Another really cool feature about jump lists, and jump lists are all throughout. There's a little pin there, and if I click on that pin, my send out cards will be at the top, will be pinned at the top. That means no matter how often my frequent web pages change, send out cards will be up there. So all of these units have these jump lists. Here's PowerPoint. This shows the last 10 PowerPoints that I've opened. Google Chrome shows where I've been in Google Chrome. Outlook, same thing, shows different things you can do. Those are great, but they're not just a feature of 10. Again, they started in 7, they were in 8, and now they're in 10 also. But anyway, the most used are at the top, and that will change as you use certain apps more than others. All right, the next feature on the start menu that we want to look at is the all apps. And this is something that on my Windows phone, I love this feature on the Windows phone. If you look at the very bottom, you see all apps. All right, if I click on that, this would be the equivalent of, remember in Windows 7 and XP and all those, it would say all programs. This is the same as the all program list, except that it's better. And here's what I mean by like this. I could still take my scroll bar and scroll down through all my applications, just like you did on Windows 10 or on Windows 7 and XP and Vista and all that. But in Windows 10, there's a much easier way. Suppose that I wanted to go to a different, an application. Let's say I wanted to go to Twitter, which is an application on here. I could scroll all the way down and see if it was under the T's, which it is. I could do that, but an easier way is I can click on any of the headings. Now the headings are 0 to 9 and A, B, C, D, E, etc. So if I click on the A, here's what happens. I get the entire alphabet. And when I look at that, I can actually see if a letter is grayed out, it means that I don't have any applications that start with that letter. But in this case, I would click on the T and it immediately takes me to the T's, and there's my Twitter account. So again, now let's say I wanted to go back up to Adobe. I could scroll up, but instead I'm just going to click on the V, get my letters, click on the A, and here's all my Adobe applications under the A. It's a very neat feature. It works great with touch like on my Windows phone, but it also works awesome with a mouse and keyboard like you see me doing right now. This is all done with the mouse. So that's a new feature under all apps. Now, when you want to get out of all apps and go back to the normal left side, down at the very bottom, the word back with a back arrow, I click on that, and there is my normal start menu with the left side showing the way that we first introduced it. So that's a very cool feature of the left side. Now, also on the left, you see something here called File Explorer. We used to call this Windows Explorer, but you know, that was often mixed up with Internet Explorer and Windows Explorer, and people would get the two confused. So for Windows 10, it's been renamed, actually it was in Windows 8 also, renamed File Explorer. If I click on that, it will bring up my window that I'm used to as what we used to call Windows Explorer. I can look on my computer, I can see different things, I can go to documents, music, all that good kind of stuff. And that's what File Explorer is. I'm going to X out of that like a normal window. All right, the last thing we're going to look on the left for right now is right under File Explorer is Settings. If I click on Settings, this is a kind of a neat thing. This is one of the ways you can personalize it. I click on Settings and then I go to Personalize. And when I get there, now I click down on Start for the Start menu. Couple things. What's turned off by default is I could use the Start full screen. That would be like Windows 8. That's what Windows 8 did. It used the Start as full screen. But the other thing you can do is choose which folders appear on Start. Because some of you, if you look at this Start menu, you'll say, hey, wait a minute. I used to have documents on there. It doesn't say documents anywhere. So if I go to Settings and click on Choose Which Appear, here are the options I'm giving. File Explorer is already on. Settings is on. Documents by default is turned off. Downloads, music, pictures, videos, home group, network, and personal folder, they are all turned off by default. But I could turn them on. So if I wanted to turn, like I use downloads a lot, so if I click on that and turn downloads on, and then go back and get out of settings, now if I go to the start menu, again, on the left-hand side, I see downloads right above File Explorer. So I can personalize what I want on the left-hand side. Again, a really neat feature. All right, now let's talk to the side about the right side, which is the side that those of you that upgraded from some older version to 8, this is the side that drove you crazy. But now that you have the left side, it should be a little better for you. And we're going to show you how to work some of that right side so that it can also become pretty easy for you. The first thing we're going to look at is that on the right side, these are called tiles, and they are grouped. and you can make your own groups. Now, Microsoft has given some of these things their own name. Like for instance, the calendar, mail, Microsoft Edge, photos, Cortana, weather, all that stuff. They have called that Life at a Glance. But I don't have to keep that name. I can click there right on Life at a Glance and I get a text window. So I could now call this something else. Like I might call this, let's call this social networking. Okay. So when I look at that, I've renamed that, and there are other groups here. The next one, Play and Explore, and then here's a blank space with no name, but if I put my mouse there, it gives me the opportunity to type a name in there. So you can actually make little groups with your tiles and put things together that belong together. So that's a very neat thing. Now we're going to talk about tiles because there's so much you can do with them. If I take a tile, I'm going to take this Candy Crush Saga. All right, the first thing, if you don't know this about me, I don't play any of these kind of games on the computer, ever, these kind of games. So for Candy Crush Saga to be over here where I can just click on it, it's a waste of space. So instead, I'm going to right click on the tile, and now I can left click on Unpin from Start. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to unpin it, and now it's gone. Now it's not gone from the machine. In case in my old age I decide I want to start playing games on the computer, it's not off the computer. I just took it off the right side of the main menu. Okay, so the next thing I can do is so now I've showed you how to remove it. There are other things you can do. For instance, Twitter. Okay, I use Twitter a lot. So I can right click on Twitter, and instead of unpinning it, I can resize it. Now, right now, it's a size that we call medium. All right, I can make it small, and I'll do that so you can see what that looks like. And that allows me to have more tiles in the same amount of space. Or I'll right click again and I can resize and I can say wide. And now it is wider because if I use Twitter more, I may want it wider so I can just click on it and go. But you say, wait a minute, I don't want it down there. So the next thing you can do is you can left click on it, and now I can drag it where I want it. And I'm going to put it at the top under social media. So I have now moved that tile up to the top. So if I look at different things, there's really nothing else in here that's social media other than the Twitter. I might have something else on my computer like Instagram or something like that, and I could put that up with social networking. So again, I could resize the tiles. I can move them simply by holding them down and dragging. See, I can make my own configuration. I can right click and resize to small if I wanted. There's all kinds of things that I can do with these tiles, and I can move them where I want them. I can take up, if I make some more small, I can do things like that. It's a very neat thing that you can do to make this work for you. And again, one of the things I'll say in a little bit under general information, which will be in a minute, to use the right side well, here's the very first thing you should do. Leave it the way it came from Windows 10, but then go through and remove from the start menu everything that you know you're absolutely not going to use. So that will make your start menu smaller on the right-hand side to start with. Then that makes it easier to organize what you're doing. Now, one other thing that I want to mention on the tiles, tiles can be what we call live. For instance, here I have the weather. Okay, if I turn live tiles on and my live tiles are on. I just did this earlier today. At some point, it's not doing it yet because it takes sometimes a certain amount of time. When I start the menu, instead of seeing weather, I will actually see the temperature at Port St. Lucie because that's what I set it for. So that's what we call a live tile. It will change as the temperature changes or as there's some kind of weather warning. It will be it will change on the start menu. Again, right now, that's not working for weather because I just added it a little while ago, and it takes a while for it to sync up and to actually become a live tile. So that's what we mean by a live tile. That's what these are old tiles. And again, part of my organization, part of the way to use this menu is to start, organize them by removing the things that you definitely are not going to use. Then after you've done that, resize the tiles in a fashion that you like. Nothing is wrong or right here. You know, I might make Twitter big and somebody else might shake their head and say, no, 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 it doesn't need to be that big. I just need to see it. I can make it small. You can organize the tiles any way you want. You can make whatever you want, certain sizes. And guess what? They're changeable. So if you play with it and you decide you don't like it a certain size or you don't like the arrangement, or maybe you name something like maybe I named this social networking like I did, and perhaps I don't have enough social networking applications or programs on my computer to really warrant that kind of heading, I can click up and rename it. So you can do all that kind of stuff very easily. So that's what you want to do on the right hand side with the tiles. Now I'm going to show you one other thing that you can do with the start menu because we're almost out of time. You know, I try to keep these things to 30 minutes. And I have two things to show you, but one more with this. You notice how this is kind of black and transparent. All right, I can go to settings and I can go to personalization and I can go to colors. Now, I could allow the machine to automatically pick an accent color for me if I wanted. That's turned off by default. But on the other hand, I could pick one here from the list. So if you wanted to do that, you could pick a color. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick this color. We'll call it orange for lack of any other term. And right below the colors, there's a little option, Show Color on Taskbar, Start, and Action Center. You notice right now, the Start menu itself is still black. But if I turn that on, watch what happens. It gives a light, still transparent background with orange. And again, whatever color I pick would be there. So that's how you can change your start menu from something that's kind of boring, black, transparent to some other color if you wanted to. So I'll just do this to blue. There are all kinds of things you can do. You can find something that's easier on the eyes, something that's tougher on the eyes. There's all kinds of options that you can do with colors. And that's something that you can play with. You're not going to hurt anything. You can play with the colors and just try it. All right. So the last thing I want to show you before we finish for this afternoon is that if you go down to the Start menu and right click on it, of course, you know, if you're using a touch screen and you're using touch, you get a right menu by holding on with the finger until there's a little pop-up, and then when you let go, the right window will be there. If you go and right click, you will see what was the Windows 8 and 8.1 right click menu, but it can get you to some things very quickly, like the control panel, like programs and features where you might add or remove a program. It might get you to the task manager or something else, system. I can click on system. And when I do that, it brings up and tells me about my system. Windows 10, Lenovo, 16 gigabytes of memory this has. It's a i7 core. It gives me all this information about my computer. And I got to that by right-clicking and choosing from the menu that comes up. So that is the sort of last thing I want to show you today about the Windows Start menu. Now, when you upgrade to Windows 10, if you haven't done it already, when you do that, you should have a place to start, no pun intended, with the Start menu. Now, one other thing is that if you haven't signed up, please sign up for Thursday's webinar. That's going to be on the new browser instead of Internet Explorer, Microsoft Edge. And we're going to show you some things about that that you probably don't know, even if you've already been using it, and help you figure out how to use that, uh, at that point. All right, so that's it for that. We do have one question submitted that Joyce felt I should respond, that everyone. People want to know, or someone wants to know, are there any problems with 10 at this time? Well, this is an operating system. It's a new one. It's an upgrade for most of us. Of course there's problems. We've upgraded a lot of computers in the shop, and there's been a few problems. Microsoft themselves, right after Windows 10 came out, which was now about 2-3 weeks ago, the very second major update they pushed out to everyone, on some machines, it caused the machine to continually cycle through trying to install an update, failing, then trying again and failing. And when that happened, some people, not everyone, for a lot of people, including us here in the shop, we upgraded all of our machines and did not have a problem. But for enough people, that happened that it came to Microsoft's attention and they had to issue a fix for it. So yes, there are some problems, but I will tell you this is different than previous operating systems. Um, People used to say, oh, I'm not going to upgrade until Service Pack 1 comes out. Here's the story about Windows 10. There is going to be no Service Pack 1, at least it's not planned at this time. Microsoft is just going to continually push out upgrades or updates that will not only to handle security issues if there are any, and there always are, but it will handle features. It will change features automatically. So you don't have to wait for a Service Pack 1 to come out before you decide to upgrade. The only thing I'm asking our customers is, if you have not already upgraded, please don't upgrade until you get to see about at least this week's webinars, and maybe the next two also, because we're going to talk about some other really cool features about Windows 10. I will tell you this, Windows 10 is more secure than any version of Windows previous. It's very slick when you have a touch machine, but even if you don't, that's the great thing about 10 compared to what happened with Windows 8. Even if you're using just a mouse and a keyboard like I did through this entire webinar, it works just wonderfully. All right, so I'm going to close for today, and thank you for attending the webinar. I'm going to try to get this follow-up out as quickly as possible, probably tomorrow, because I have other people that couldn't attend today. They want to see it, and I want to get these webinars out to as many people as I can before you start updating to Windows 10, or before you start having major problems with Windows 10 if you already have done so. So thanks again. Have a great day and take care.